good first day at work, Mom.
Good evening. Welcome to The Next Word. I'm your host, Chris Warnke, and tonight you're in for a treat. We have Richard Siegel, CEO of the Funniest Celebrities Contest here in Washington, D.C., but now nationally, and we're going to hear about why laughter really makes you live longer. And Richard, it does make you live longer, and God knows in Washington, D.C., we need comedy.
We need a lot of laughter.
We need a lot of laughter here.
I mean, there's no such thing as bipartisanship except at my show.
It's amazing, and your show is phenomenal.
Thank you.
Having
Thank
it
you.
last week here in
last
Washington,
Wednesday.
D.C.,
Yeah.
with some of the national figures
Right.
like
Dan Glickman.
Dan Glickman and
Ayla Brown from Senator Brown's daughter from American Idol.
Clarence Page from the
Clarence
Chicago
Page,
Tribune.
Jamie McIntyre. It's a chance for celebrities, journalists, politicians, mostly some athletes, to get up and show a different side of themselves.
And it's a hard side to show. It's comedy, stand-up comedy is difficult.
It's very difficult, and especially for some of these people, like Jamie McIntyre, for example. He's
now with
Al Jazeera America, and he used to work for CNN for 18 years, and he'd be standing there on the sidelines of a war, and then a bomb just went off. But can I tell you about three guys in a bar? I mean, you can't do that. You've got to be very, very serious in that role. So some of these people really just love to show a different side of themselves.
But it's an outlet for them.
It's an outlet. It's catharsis. It's a release. It's therapy, you know. And comedy is often therapy. Patch Adams used it with kids.
Yes, I knew Patch Adams. He's wonderful. What he's done with the kids is just phenomenal.
It's amazing. And that was for kids with cancer, right. And Child Life does fantastic things with clowns and fun games, and they even have laugh therapy, where people actually physically laugh, different laughs. Ralph Nader was in our show last year, and
I remember.
And during his routine, he tried out a few laughs for us, and but it's a fantastic way for people to all come together, the audience, the celebrities, and we have Democrats and Republicans sitting next to each other on stage. I mean, we had Dennis Kucinich and Ed Gillespie working together. You know, that'll never happen again.
Ed Gillespie, having run for Senate.
State Senate.
Virginia.
He was director of the RNC,
right.
And Dennis Kucinich was the congressman in Ohio. So Dennis is about the farthest to the left, and Ed Gillespie, who's worked with the White House whenever Republicans been in, is about the farthest to the right. But they were both ventriloquists. And
they were ventriloquists.
Ventriloquists. So we had dueling ventriloquists, sort of like a crossfire. And,
I love it.
Yeah.
I missed that one.
Yeah, you missed that one. It
was before my time.
Before your time, yeah.
Way before my time. Yeah. So speaking of time, so you started in 1987.
1987.
Why did you do it, though, Richard? I mean, it's a wonderful concept. I mean,
we just kind of evolved into it. I was working at a comedy club, and I've done comedy since I was 18 years old, and I've been doing PR for a number of years, and so I wanted to kind of combine the two and get some media into the place and get some coverage, because I was the promotions director of the Comedy Factory. The Comedy Cafe, and I was also a comedian there. And
where was that?
That was on K Street in Washington. It's no longer.
The Comedy Cafe. I was going to say the Comedy Cafe was on K Street.
It was on K Street. There was Garvin's and there was Comedy Cafe, and so. We had Martin Lawrence played there. A lot of big names played over there. Yakov Smirnoff, do you remember him? Yeah. And anyhow, so we were trying to figure out a way to get some media recognition, and the owner came over to me and said, "Hey, why don't we do a funniest media personality?" And I said, "We'll never get enough funny people to actually fill a show."
That's great.
So I said, let's just open it up to funniest celebrity, and it was born. And
did you get people?
And we got people. We had Paul Berry, who was an anchorman. We had John Riggins the first year. And so we always had like one act, one special big name. We had Secretary of the VA, Edward Derwinski back then. We'd have Helen Thomas, Sarah McClendon, who was a dear friend of mine.
Right.
And Sarah really introduced me to the network, the crowd in Washington. So the people in the know. People went to the White House with her, went to a lot of different functions with her. And so she was sort of my entree. Do you remember?
Yes, very well.
Yes.
That dates me.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, but so she was your entree.
She was my entree.
Because you really do bring in national figures
in
the
yeah.
media.
I mean, we've had Tim Russert, we've had Chris Matthews, we've had political figures. We've had two guys from the White House. Austin Goolsbee was director of the economic affairs for Obama, and John Lovett, the speechwriter. And both of those guys won. And knowing that the funniest celebrity in Washington was running our economy, that's a scary thought.
That's a scary. Now, you've had senators.
We've had senators. We had Senator Arlen Specter. We had Tom Daschle when he was majority leader. We've had Mike Huckabee, Governor Mike Huckabee. We had Senator Scott Brown throughout the first joke.
Yeah.
There's a certain honor that we give to people that can't make up an entire 5-minute act. Candy Crowley last year did it, and
she threw out the first.
She threw out the first joke, the ceremonial first joke.
Right.
This year it was Tom Matte, a legendary running back from the Baltimore Colts. And as somebody that wants to get 1 or 2 or 3 jokes out there, but they can't really work out a routine. So we've had George Stephanopoulos.
Hard. Yeah.
It is hard.
You had George Stephanopoulos?
We had Stephanopoulos, yeah.
Wow.
We've had Sam Donaldson several years. We had him 2 years. We had Cal Thomas, the syndicated columnist. So Norah O'Donnell throughout the first joke. So we've had
incredible lineup of people.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah.
But you started, like we said, in 1987.
1987.
We started
kind of small. We had weathermen and news anchor people, and then there'd be one big name, like a John Riggins or the Secretary of VA or Helen Thomas.
Yeah. Helen was in it.
Helen was in it. Yeah. And so. Chris Matthews was sort of the jumping off year. I did it for 5 years, sort of on a lower scale at the Comedy Cafe. And, 2 years at the Comedy Cafe, and then I moved around to different hotels. Did the Shoreham, did the Mayflower. And none of the hotels really worked. The Hilton, nothing, no matter how fancy the hotel was, the atmosphere was we did the Mayflower even. Were you there for the Mayflower?
No, I started with the Improv.
The Improv, okay. Well, it was plastic. It was just not the atmosphere, the feel of a comedy club. Fortunately, this year at NPR, they were able to create the feeling of a comedy club. But for many years we did it at the Improv. And so we bounced around to different locations trying to figure out what to do with the show. And then I had another job I was a national sales director in charge of 70 people. So I just really didn't have the time for about 4 or 5 years. And then I started getting itchy. I needed a laugh. I needed to make people laugh. I needed to bring these people back into my world and the world of the audience. So I met with a comedian friend of mine who was Al Gore's roommate in college, incidentally. And his name is Bob Summerby. And we had lunch, and we were talking, and he said, Richard, you have no idea what you have in your hands. This is not some little local event. This is national. Stop asking just the weathermen. Go ahead and ask the major news anchors. Go ahead and ask congressmen and senators. We've had so many congressmen. Linda Sanchez was hilarious. She was a riot. We had Adam Schiff. We've had just numerous from California, from all over.
You had Mike Huckabee.
We had Mike Huckabee. He was funny. He was very funny. He won.
It takes a lot of guts and courage, seriously, to get up there and to perform.
Comedy is the hardest single thing to do.
I can't imagine how.
It's much harder than singing a song.
Absolutely,
or dancing, or Dancing with the Stars. Okay, so you get the celebrities dancing, but they can move, they can do something. But here you are you're naked.
You're naked, and your delivery has to be precise.
It has to be precise, and you don't have any props. You don't have a podium. You're just there with a microphone.
Right.
You know, some people bring notes because the bar is very
hard.
Yeah. But it's hard to remember. But they bring note cards or something. I remember Senator Lieberman, who was also a winner, and he had note cards, and he
had note cards.
And he hadn't prepared that much. The note cards were incredible. I mean, the jokes were fantastic, and he was talking about how he was trying to change his image. So he had Dennis Rodman working on his yarmulke collection, and he had Larry Flint working on his website. So so sometimes this whole element of surprise, trying to get. But he had these note cards, and he was looking up at them and reading them as he was doing his routine, and he hadn't rehearsed that much. So somebody goes, "Oh, this is a good one." And so it was.
And he won.
And he won because the jokes were just so good, and also the element of surprise. Like we had Norm Ornstein, who's sort of a wonk who gives his opinion on everything in D.C. Think tankish guy, and he kind of looks very nerdy. So when apparently he's very good friends with Al Franken, but when he delivers a line and just total elements of surprise, and so sometimes what you're expecting has a big effect on how much you laugh.
And you had Dan Glickman, former Secretary of Agriculture, Congressman, Kansas. He won.
He won this year, and Jamie Weinstein from the Daily Caller won second place. Jamie was hilarious.
His delivery was superb.
It was fantastic. Yeah. Jamie actually, about 8 or 9 years ago, wrote an article when he was with Roll Call on the event, and we still have it on our website. And then later on, he participated in it and won.
He was great.
He was great. So all these people from this past year were winners. Clarence Page, Jamie McIntyre. So this was sort of the funniest.
Oh, this was the funniest.
This was our Tournament of Champions.
Tournament of Champions, right?
Yeah. So Dan Glickman did it in the first time he ever did it. He did an officer.
So he won before.
All these people
won before.
All these people had won before. They won second or third place. You know, they weren't all the champions, but they had all won something. Grover Norquist, and there's another element of surprise. You would never expect
Grover to be funny.
He's great. To be funny, and he's very polished, and he's
very polished.
Yeah, very. Just delivery is just
his
awesome.
Delivery is superb.
Yeah. So, and it's a whole different world for him. I mean, he's a very serious and combative kind of guy, and in politics, but yet in comedy, he always starts out with this year he didn't, but a lot of times he starts out with a drink of water and with a scotch, and he says, "Scotch, no water. I don't drink water. Dick Cheney tortures people with it."
Oh, gee.
So to get Grover,
this is pretty apropos.
Yeah, Grover. So a lot of times people will insult themselves. They'll.
What's an outlet?
It's an outlet, and one of the things, I think one of the reasons why Dan Glickman won was because he was so humble. He was laughing at himself, and when people laugh at himself, it's.
And also when you bring your mother into it.
Yeah, he did. He did
take
Jewish
it to another level.
Humor.
The
Absolutely.
Jewish mother, it was great. It was
Yeah,
wonderful.
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah,
I mean, he was terrific.
Yeah,
he was great. Well, we're going to take a short break.
Okay.
I know there are a couple clips that we're going to show because it was a great night.
Thank you.
But we'll take a short break and we'll be right back.
Okay.
You're watching The Next Word, Channel 16. We're going to take a short break and we'll be right back.
There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org. Adopt.
He sits down and I says, and I start talking and answering some questions. The guy raises his hand again. He says, "Mr. Matty." I says, "Yes, sir." He says, "You're not only a rotten quarterback, you were a lousy halfback." I said, "Hold on here. Wait a second. Take a look at these statistics. I got a couple Super Bowl records still out there. I was the first guy to get to 100 yards rushing. I still have 10.5 yards per carry. Not too bad." He sits down, and before I end the speech, he stands up again. I says, "What the hell do you want now?" He says, "You're not only a rotten quarterback and a lousy halfback, you can't even talk." I I said, well, thanks a lot, buddy. Thanks a lot. I said, let me get the hell out of here because I can't stand this. I'm walking down. This doctor comes running up to me. He says, Tom, you don't know what inspiration you've been to these people tonight. I says, you got to be kidding me. He says, you know the guy was asking all those questions over there? I says, yeah. He says, that's the first intelligent thing he said in 6 months.
In a society that we have right now where people are going on strike constantly, you've got the fast food workers who are going on strike, you got the folks on the airlines. When they leave, who's your pilot going to be, huh? Who is the next person going to be who gets to fly your plane? Is it going to be Captain Handy? Perhaps not. Perhaps it's going to be one of those, dispossessed guys who used to work at that fast food restaurant, man, and finally gets the job upgrade of their life. Up to my brain. You can work at fast food, now I understand. Gonna get me some tasty fries. Excuse me while I kiss the sky. There we go. All right. 5, 4.
Well, I was stuck inside your city full of stuck-up suits, all sucking money from the government teat. You're pigging out on pork from a federal fork while I'm a-trying just to make ends meet. You're all commies and crooks who read too many books, and you're keeping us in debt to China. So I had to bust out, had to go down south, down to sweet home Carolina. And that's real America. If it ain't got a food court, we don't call that a mall. Real America, it ain't a great debate until it turns to a barroom brawl. Real America, we never ride a metro, 'cause that sounds vaguely gay. Real America, our only kind of pride is in the good old USA. Now D.C. is a town of paper-pushing clowns trying to tell me what to do.
Welcome to the funniest celebrity in D.C., a contest whose name includes at least one true fact. We are in D.C. Being the funniest celebrity in D.C. is kind of like being the fattest peasant in Zimbabwe or the thinnest politician in New Jersey. It's just not a high bar. We're not talking the D list here. We're talking the Z list. Here's how low a bar it is. Not a single one of the celebrities here on stage tonight would get a call back from "I'm a celebrity, get me out of here," which is universally considered the lowest reality celebrity TV show ever made. Let me just give you an example here. A few of the names that have appeared on the show are Alana Stewart, Tori Wilson, Angela Shelton. If you've never heard those names, join the club. But also understand they are significantly more famous than everyone appearing here tonight.
I'm not going to talk about politics. I'm going to talk about me. I was 70 this last week. So, hey, let's hear it. So it gives me... Thank you. So anyway, it gives me... I should be 71, but I was sick a year. But anyway, it gives me kind of a time to reflect on my life and also on my mother, who was a very important part of my life. My mother was a classic Jewish mother, and I like to tell the story about a Jewish boy who comes home from school and tells his mother that he's been given a part in a play. Wonderful. What part is it, the boy says. I play the part of a Jewish husband. The mother looks at him and scowls and says, "Go back and tell the teacher you want a speaking part." So, in any event, but the truth of the matter is my mother was a great mother, and I was one of the few Jewish kids in the class, and I had this nice career, and my first career was I was elected to the House of Representatives, and her response was, "You have a nice house. What do you need to run for a house for?" And then I became a secretary, and she says, "Not good enough. I want something better than that for my son than being a secretary." It didn't matter that I worked for Bill Clinton. And then...
The evening. This is a song called Loose Ends. Think you're slick undercover, making a mess with your loaded tongue. Phone rings, another block number, but I'm a soldier with an apron now. Get up, get lost, get out the door. I'm fed up, can't take it anymore. Yeah, you're lying, but I'm not crying. Don't need your loose ends, trying to forget that you're a liar. Good love, this love ain't worth fighting for. I was ripped up, bound up, but I grew up. I got a little wiser, used to be tied down, but I broke away. Don't need your loose ends, yeah.
So the evening was truly enjoyable on lots of levels.
Yeah, it was.
But let's talk about the year before, because that was quite an episode.
Oh my God. Josh Rogan is a journalist from the Daily Beast.
The Daily Beast. And Daily Beast has what kind of circulation? It's tremendously large.
Unbelievable. They own Newsweek. And Newsweek's sort of making a comeback, and they're huge. And so he's a little bit snarky.
This was last year's.
This was last year's
at the
event.
Improv.
At the Improv.
Okay.
And Dan Ninen was our headliner.
And he's a pretty famous comedian.
He's a famous comedian. Yeah, he's half Japanese and half Indian, right. And most of his routine is about that and some impressions.
Right.
Well, Josh Rogan was tweeting and about the show as it was going on in real time, and
when Ninen was
on,
performing, right?
So Ninen goes back to the green room and is relaxing, and he takes out his phone and he starts looking, and he's seeing his tweets, and he sees a tweet about this show, and then he sees a tweet about himself, and so he was great. I mean, he was very funny, but.
He was very funny.
He was very funny, but Josh Rogan didn't really think so. He thought some of his impressions were stale. He was doing a lot of this R and L thing that the Asians do, and he made fun of that. So he made several comments about him and Candy Crowley and Jamie McIntyre and just the crew. I mean, these are amateur comedians, but they're celebrities. But mostly, I think Dan was upset because
he's a professional.
He's a professional, and they were talking bad about him. So he walks over to Josh and he says,
and I was sitting right next to him.
Oh, you were? Okay. So he delivers a real punchline. He says, "Are you Josh Rogan?" He says, "Yes." And bam, punches him in the face.
Yes,
and
I remember that. I remember.
And then he
I thought it was part
again.
of the act, actually. I thought it was part of the whole.
He pushed him again, and bam, punched, and he even said bam. No, he didn't. I'm just kidding. But the entire audience, the people around you were all noticing the
Well,
fracas.
we thought it was part of the act.
Right, and everybody else was just pretending that it never happened, just eyes riveted on the show. So, but Dan got arrested that night for an assault, and so it was. And Dan was supposed to come. Josh was supposed to come back with boxing gloves and the theme of Rocky this year, but he didn't make it.
Yeah, but so that. Certainly was a night to remember.
Yeah, that punctuated the event, and we went viral.
Yeah, you went viral.
Yeah, so.
But it's always good to go. What would they say? All press is good press.
That's what they say.
That's what they say, right?
Yeah.
So, Richard, so you've taken this now. It's been your baby for 20 years.
Right.
20 years.
Right.
But what you're doing now in your professional life.
Yes.
I know this is a labor of love. In terms of the funniest celebrity.
Right.
But you're really working with autistic kids.
I work with autistic kids and mentally ill adults. I'm working with schizophrenics and bipolars and depressed people and making them laugh. I'm teaching class on performing arts. I'm giving them, for the mentally ill, I'm working with autistic children and just incorporating comedy and health. And it's just such a great way to make a difference.
Wow.
Yeah.
But in terms of autism, we've seen these huge increased rates of autism. What's that attributed to? Because it seems like I've read about it. Certainly, they're skyrocketed.
Yeah. Well,
in states, like New Jersey and West Virginia and certainly Maryland and
right. And I think what it is more people are identifying. I don't think that there's any real change in the numbers of autistic kids and adults. I just think that all of a sudden people aren't saying, well, he's a little different. He doesn't look you in the eye. That's Asperger's. Asperger's is now under the auspices of autism.
Right. And for the audience, Asperger, explain the difference between...
Asperger's are very, very high-functioning autistic people. They're people that usually have great speech, but they don't look you in the eye. They sort of look away. They don't have social skills. They don't have life skills. They really don't know how to go to a party and talk to somebody, or be in class and talk to their neighbor. So they're usually geniuses in some ways. You remember Rain Man with Dustin Hoffman, and it was, they may be, I was working with one child who used to take computers apart and put them together just for fun. And brilliant, but when it comes to social skills and existing in society, they don't. Oftentimes they'll talk to each other. They'll talk to the people they like, but they may not like very many people. So yeah, I got a degree recently in psychiatric rehabilitation, and that's when I sort of charted out this new course.
Well, I think it's great because there's all kinds of alternate treatments available.
Right.
Or alternate therapy treatments available.
Right, and we're going to be doing...
And comedy is, I mean...
Yeah, comedy is an ideal setting.
It's an ideal setting. So I know you're going to be doing something like this in
Pittsburgh.
In Pittsburgh.
Yeah, we're going to be doing a show for a grand opening of the Indica Hotel in Pittsburgh, and we're going to be doing a roundtable. We've got a guy from Ringling Brothers who's going to come in, and he does a lot with humor and therapy. And we're going to have some doctors and some clients and just talk about it. How does humor help heal? Right. Because it's really healing.
It's very healing. When is this targeted for?
April or May.
April or May. And you want to do this? Don't you want to replicate this pilot, this program, sort of around?
Well, we've already done
the region.
We've already done San Francisco.
You did San Francisco,
and we did Baltimore a couple years.
And
so
did you do New York?
No, we've sort of stayed away from
New
York and the LA for now, because everybody is a celebrity there. So unless you get Derek Jeter, nobody's going to be happy. But LA, it might work. But we're going to try to take it to different cities and do it on the internet and get audience responses and just see what happens,
So get audience. So you're going to have an audience interaction.
We're going to have audience interaction and
component.
Right, and maybe we'll make it into like an American Idol type thing with the funniest celebrity in America, where they do something in different districts.
Oh, so they could vote, or they could.
They can vote, and they can do something in a different area, and then the next week a comedian would train them just like they do in all those other shows, and then they narrow down the field, and then we'd have the finals in Washington.
Oh, I see. Okay, the big final, which is always in December.
No,
I know you've changed it. You've changed it.
Well, normally it depends on what year. Yeah. When it comes to election years, we move it away from the election. Right. So we'll do it in early September or December.
Or December, right.
So either...
You miss October, November.
Right. Sometimes we do it in early October. It just depends on the year. But yeah, so...
And you're going to continue it, of course.
Yes, of course.
For next year.
Next year. So, yeah, so...
So now how are you going to top this act?
Well, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see who gets into office.
Right. We'll see who stands out.
Who stands out? Whether it's the Tea Party and.
All right. It's going to be fun.
It's going to be fun. Yeah.
This was great, though. Well, we didn't even get to talk about Alpha House, and we're running out of time now. But
okay. Well, we did. We actually were the subject of a TV show. The entire episode was called The Contest, and it was all worked around the funniest celebrity contest.
And this was on Alpha House.
On Alpha House, which is on Amazon Prime, and we had Wanda Sykes and John Goodman were in the show, and I got to be MC and got a couple people off the stage, introduced Grover Norquist, and it was good. It was just fabulous. Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to work with you.
It's always
and thank
a pleasure
you
to work with
for
you.
being here.
Thank you. All right.
You've been watching The Next Word. You can see us on Tuesdays at 9 and Wednesdays at 6. I hope you enjoyed the show. Have a wonderful evening.